Hi, you've reached Call Your Publicist, your go to source for PR moves, media moments, and brand strategies that keep businesses and people in the headlines for the right reasons. I'm one of your hosts, Jenna Guarneri, CEO and founder of James G Public Relations.
And I'm your co host, Alexandra Anastasio. Let's start talking.
For any woman who has ever suffered in heels, Haley Pavone is your savior. As the founder and CEO of Pashion Footwear, she created the first fully convertible heel. And trust us when we say, your feet will thank you. Haley took the common question, why hasn't anyone done this yet, and turned that into a multi-million-dollar brand. She's completely redefining what comfort and confidence look like in the fashion world, proving you can build a brand that's both practical and powerful. All right, obviously, love the concept behind your brand. So just a little backstory. For years, I'd be commuting into the city, going to work, and, wearing my heels. And then I wasn't wearing my heels. And I had to, carry them in my bag, change the shoe, never a sneaker. But I would have loved to have a pair, I still would love, but to have a pair of shoes that I can convert, when I don't want to be wearing a heel to when I am wearing a heel. It's genius. To me, that is genius. So what was that light bulb moment that made you say, I have to make this happen?
It was a very literal inception point for me of, to your point, I think almost every woman has some kind of pretty regular high heel struggle. Commuting is, of course, a big one for a lot of women, trying to travel with all these different pairs of shoes or going out to any kind of formal event. I mean, really just anytime women are wearing heels, there's discomfort and inconvenience. But for me, the inspiration came actually during my sophomore year of college. I was 20 years old and I was going to my sorority spring formal, and I'd worn 6-inch platform pumps, as you did in 2016 at a sorority spring formal. And as I'm sure you both can relate to firsthand, you cannot dance in 6-inch platform stilettos. There's no way. You're doing, I call it the Winston wobble, right? Like trying to move your feet as little as possible. And that wasn't working for me. I'm the kind of gal where I like to bust a move and really tear up the dance floor. So I solved this problem of my heels hurting the way most young women do. I took them off, put them in the growing pile of discarded shoes, and went out there barefoot. But unfortunately, the inspiration, as I said, struck very, very viscerally when one of my sorority sisters, who still had her stilettos on, accidentally stomped the ballpoint of her stiletto through my barefoot and
Oh,
impaled me.
Oh my God.
I know.
I feel your pain because I feel like it's happened in so many girl groups.
It's happened to everyone. Like
Yeah.
when we were doing, initial R&D, I talked to hundreds of women. Every woman has a high heel horror story. Not
Yes.
necessarily getting impaled, but like everyone has had something bad happen
Yes.
because of high heels, it feels like.
Wait, this is bringing me back to a memory, and I don't know if you remember it. That we haven't brought this up yet, but you just reminded me. A couple of years ago, we went to an event, and I had on 6, 7.
Oh, yes. I know where we're going here.
Huge, beautiful heels that were gold, that had a huge wedge, that big, chunky shoe.
Yes,
and it
we were
looked
at the
beautiful.
seaport.
We were at the seaport in the city, and it's all cobblestone.
I don't mean to laugh.
And I think I was on my phone, and I hit the cobblestone the wrong way. And I'm usually a pro at cobblestones. Hit it the wrong way because I was distracted.
And you were wobbling and
wa-
going down.
I flew, like it just flew across the seaport. So embarrassing. But I understand the transition of going to where you're going and then
Yes.
needing the right shoe to get out of that, like to get to where you got to
Yes.
go. Not every shoe is comfortable for that or
No.
made to walk in.
For sure. Plus high heels, to your point, cobblestone, grates,
Oh,
any kind of
sure.
serious uphill or downhill
Yeah.
incline. Like they're so impractical for anything other than either standing in place or
Uh-huh.
sitting still and looking pretty.
absolutely. You just said grates, and it just reminded me New York City is filled with
Yeah.
grates. So if you're walking the streets, your heel is bound to be caught in a grate. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I've gotten stuck in a grate. I'm
Yeah.
not going to lie, where I'm like, we're going to lose the heel because it's going to snap off.
Yeah.
Exactly. See, at least with our shoe, if the heel comes off, you can just put it back on. So it's fine. It's no big deal. But no, I mean, I could not get over after that happened, kind of, went to bed, woke up the next morning, and really can only describe it as this light bulb moment of everything we're talking about right now was going through my head. I started thinking of all the times I'd been hurt or inconvenienced by wearing high heels. And I was like, in spite of all that inconvenience, in spite of knowing they hurt, we still as women want to wear them. you know, for better or worse. Like, it is such a signature style. When I had put those heels on to go to that dance, I knew I wasn't going to make it all night in them. I was fully emotionally prepared to end up barefoot, but and it just struck me how psychologically odd that was, that we are, you know, voluntarily wearing a shoe that we know can't keep up with us through, you know, all day, all night, whatever activities are coming our way. And so instead of wearing a different type of shoe, we're actually just troubleshooting the shoe on our own behalf. Like, we plan to go barefoot. We bring backup shoes. Like, anytime a woman leaves her house with backup shoes in her purse, she's acknowledging she's not going to make it all day in those heels, right? Like, we are fully aware. And so we're consciously picking this product over and over again that just isn't working for us. We'd rather spray liquid lidocaine on our feet than not wear high heels. And I just could not get over what an obvious gap in the market it was. I was like, I feel like we should be able to make a heel that blends comfort and style without that compromise. Like, we should be able to have that look, but look good and feel good at the same time. It should not be that complicated. And so dove in head first to trying to just make a different shoe.
At first, I give you so much credit as a 20-year-old seeing a problem, but then doing the effort to fix it. Like,
Right.
that's a huge thing for any person, any entrepreneur. But then add in the factor of you're in college and you're only 20 years old and you have
Right.
to navigate. So what was this like at 20 years old? Put us in your mindset of you being in this space in college, trying to figure out how to
Right.
launch a product, not just a business, but a product-oriented business. So how did you go about this?
Sure. Well, and it was incredibly overwhelming because, to be clear, it's not like I had background in footwear or had any idea what I was doing. I just, you know, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was studying entrepreneurship. I had no intention of starting a business in school, though. I thought I'd go be a venture capitalist for a while and then maybe eventually go start something. But you can't help when that inspiration strikes. And something about me just knew when I had that idea that I needed to pursue it right then and there. Plus, I did feel like I had this kind of unusually advantageous position being in college. I was very lucky and privileged that my parents made sure I got through school debt free. And so, you know, one of the biggest obstacles with starting a business is the fear of losing your income and the instability of it. The way I saw it, I was like, look, I've got 2 more years where, you know, my rent is paid, my food is paid for. If I try this and it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. I'll graduate and go be a VC. But I basically have 2 years at this get out of jail free card to try to make this happen. And so even though I had no background and no idea what I was doing, I was like, it's too good of an opportunity to pass up. Like, I'm at no other point in my life going to have basically the ability to start a company risk free. So we've just got to figure it out. So I literally sat on the floor of my studio apartment and cut up a bunch of my own shoes with a steak knife to try to understand how they were made. I was like, I've got to like give myself a minor in cobbling and understand like the way that a shoe is structured. Once I had a decent understanding of what goes into making a shoe, literally just from ripping them apart, I was able to further conceptualize, okay, this is how I think we need to change the product from a manufacturing perspective and design perspective to actually make it possible to turn a heel into a flat. I brought that initial concept to the entrepreneurship department at my university, and they put me up for 3 different pitch competitions, which I was able to win and get $26,500 in grant funding. And so then I used that funding in the summer between my junior and senior year to hire a professional footwear development team. These were incredible footwear engineers that were ex Nike and Ariat and Adidas. And they came in and worked with me and my ragtag team of, I think, 3 students at this point. It was like me, a mechanical engineering sophomore, and an industrial technology and packaging junior. We were just like the funniest team of people that had no business making shoes, but we were so passionate about it and knew just enough to have our 3D printed mock-ups, and then worked with that professional team to translate our 3D design into an actual shoe. So it was a mix of just learning by doing, literally ripping shoes open on the ground, finding the right people to surround myself with, and then really just diving headfirst into the unknown.
There's so many good things you shared with that, but just kind of like a breakdown, a few things. I love that you had to dive in yourself to figure out how things are made from the bottom first level of the job and of the business, because we've talked about this a
Yep.
number of times. It's so important to know how to do every part of the business, because
sure.
otherwise you won't be successful
Right.
later on. You'll hire people, but you need to understand how things work from the ground up.
Of course, and we were very scrappy. Again, I think there were 3 of us initially. We always had various interns and things, but in the course of building the business, it's not like this was kind of that traditional startup path where someone and a co-founder has an idea and they go raise, $20 million and immediately hire a bunch of experts. We never had that kind of funding, never had those kinds of resources. And so over my 9 years building the company, I have done every single job at least one time. Like there was a good 3 years where I was the marketing department. I've written the emails, I've built the website, I've sent the text messages, done all that myself. Luckily now a lot of that work is with people on my team that actually know what they're doing. So we make much fewer mistakes now. I don't even like to think about how many emails went out with typos back when I was trying to do it. But yeah, I've worn pretty much every hat at some point in this
I can
journey.
imagine. I imagine
That's
you learn
important.
so much from that age. Are there any specific challenges that stand out to you that you faced at the beginning of launching the business as an entrepreneur, let alone a young entrepreneur?
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges. I'm sure you guys know entrepreneurs face a weird slew of challenges. And I would actually say, again, everyone starting a business has things they have to overcome. We were dealt a pretty bizarre hand really early on. In those initial, the first 2.5 years, we were off market in stealth mode, doing the patent protection, getting the supply chain sourced, product development, etc. I still had a really challenging time during that period because I frankly was a young female entrepreneur without a huge resume. So footwear is very expensive to get into. When I first started working the development team, they told me there's no way we can get this to production for less than $1 million. I had no access to $1 million. I was a student and a Starbucks barista. Like that was not happening for me. And so from day one, had to try to fundraise for this company, but was pretty much laughed out of every VC room I went into. The first question is, what's your resume? And I had none. And then the next question is, how old are you? And I was 20. Like I just had nothing that they were looking for. And so I pretty much had to raise a $450,000 seed round between my junior and senior year while I'm going to classes in 10 to 25K checks from angel investors that were willing to take a chance. So it was a very manual, hard process. Although a big achievement was we actually did develop the product for 450,000. So I cut that budget down by more than half. I credit that to the college scrappy like pizza for every meal mindset. We could get a lot done. But that was kind of the biggest initial challenge. And then once we launched, I'd say the largest challenge was really the macro has been a disaster. We launched the business June of 2019. And so we had about 3 normal months before the first trade war, and then the pandemic, and then the supply chain crisis, and then the recession, and now another trade war. So it's kind of become a joke in the company now that we just could not have launched a shoe business at a worse time. It's been pretty much constant problem solving, really with problems that aren't even about the company at the end of the day. They're about the market and how do you sell shoes in a climate when no one's going outside. So it has been a constant test of my problem solving ability. But I think we're just scrappy and resourceful and really passionate about what we do. And so somehow we've kept growing every year in spite of whatever the world wants to throw at us.
And I can only imagine if you didn't have any obstacles, like everything, that would feel like an easy year for you. It just
Right.
feels like, you guys were meant to do this because you could handle the challenge.
Exactly. I always joke. I'm like, when I get my first normal market year, I'm going to be a billionaire. It's going to be crazy. I'm like, my baseline is so low at this point. Give me one good year with a normal stock exchange. We're going to be on fire. I
hear
can't wait.
ya.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Well, you also, which I found this fascinating and probably was exciting for you, that you appeared on season 12 of Shark Tank.
Yes.
So, what was that experience like? And what was the mindset? So, you declined an offer from Kevin O'Leary?
I did.
I'd love to
Yeah,
hear
that was a
about this.
crazy
Tell us.
experience.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So as far as going on Shark Tank, I can only really describe it as surreal, and also a Hail Mary, quite frankly. It was surreal. As I said, I was studying entrepreneurship. I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I grew up watching the show from season one. I'd pretty much seen every episode, was a super fan. And so to all of a sudden find myself in the tank 5 yards away from Mark Cuban was crazy and overwhelming and so exciting. And really going on the show very much was kind of a Hail Mary move as well. And so, again, that we aired in 2021, filmed in 2020. Really, the way that it came to be was when we had launched in June of 2019. Our initial launch strategy was twofold from a marketing perspective. The first was to get into retail as soon as possible. I knew that our concept was really different and really unique, and so a lot of customers might not trust it at first glance. And I knew if we could sell it under the Nordstrom or Macy's banner, that would go a long way towards building that trust. And then second, we were always banking on this incredible grassroots effect. One of our biggest advantages with this product is it's so visually disruptive that we figured, for every shoe we sell, we're creating these walking billboards of a woman on the New York subway is going to rip the heel off her shoe, and every other woman on that subway is going to notice. So we were really banking on retail and referrals. 6 months in, pandemic, no one goes outside to make those referrals or need shoes. And also all the stores close. So I'm sitting there at the beginning of 2020, frankly, like chugging a bottle of wine, thinking, cool, my entire strategy for this launch has just been thrown out the window. I need to come up with a new one. And really, I just got struck by this kind of harebrained Hail Mary idea of, all right, well, everyone's inside watching TV. Let's get on Shark Tank. Which makes it sound very easy. It's not. It's like an 8-month audition process. But when I was walking into filming, really my mindset was, A, this is crazy. I'm a huge fan of the show. But more importantly, B, we desperately need this money. Like we're coming off a year where no one wants to buy shoes. We've been in a pandemic for the last 10 months. Like we really need a funding partner to come in so that we can ride this out. At this time, we had no idea how long the pandemic was going to last. And had a really hard time raising VC funding because of the macro climate. So I went in fully wanting to make a deal. And so I can't really express how difficult it was mentally to walk away from what Kevin was offering. I had gone in wanting, I believe, $500,000 for 5%? It's been so long, but I wanted, I think, $500,000 for 5%. He actually offered me that. But the trick was he wanted a royalty paid back on every pair sold, I think of about $5, up to $1 million in revenue. And so I'm standing there in the tank under so much pressure, both being, filming for live TV and also the pressure of knowing I need this money. Like I really do need this funding and I don't have it any other way right now that I think I'm going to get it. But I'm doing the math in my head and I just knew, with a product-based business, cash flow is the single most important thing. I knew we'd always been struggling to raise money. It was probably going to be an ongoing issue. I was like, we need to get profitable as fast as possible. That's going to be infinitely harder if I'm stuck paying out a royalty on every single pair of shoes that I sell. Like I really need to be maximizing my cash flow, not handing it off indefinitely, because it takes a long time to pay back $1 million at $5 a pair. And so I just very much knew in my gut in that moment, this isn't the right deal. It's like, look, I need the $500K. It's very tempting to take it, but I just kind of knew if I take this, as much as it might provide me relief right now, I really think it's going to damage the business operationally in the long run. It's just not going to work the way that I need it to work. And so I had to put my big girl pants on and say no to Kevin O'Leary and walk out without a deal, which was really terrifying in that climate. But I just had to put all my eggs in the basket that there was a more aligned deal for the company out there to be found.
Yeah. Well, I love that you were able to think on your feet because
Right.
the pressure
That had to
of
be
that
scary to make a business decision on the spot on live
with
TV.
cameras everywhere, like that's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure. But I give you so much credit for knowing your personal value and also the business value and also the future of the company all in that hot second.
Right.
So you were really quick on your feet for that. And I'm sure looking back, you're like, that was the right decision for us for whatever reason. So it was awesome for that you were able to accomplish that in literally the heat of it all.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
kind of scary.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
I tell people it was like psychologically tormenting.
Oh.
I may have PTSD, but overall, it was an amazing experience. The exposure from the show really kind of ended up being the key to your point. Like it
Yeah.
aired, it grew our business 450% that next year. We
That's
were able
fantastic.
to get investor interest from being on the show and raise $1 million. So it did eventually all end up working out, and I have no regrets.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I mean, I was devastated. Especially because it was so tough. I can't even tell you how many times building the company, people would tell me constantly this would be perfect for Shark Tank, because it is. It's very visual, and so
Right.
I really fully thought I was going to leave with a deal. Like, I was
Yeah.
very overconfident. I took such a big ego hit having to leave. And I just remember calling my COO, and she picks up the phone and she goes, "How much did you get?" And I just start bawling, like absolutely sobbing. I was like, not only did I not get anything, but I had to turn it down. Like, it was so terrifying.
Yeah.
But no regrets now with hindsight.
Well, good. I'm glad you feel like it was to your benefit too at the end of the day. But I'm curious too, because as you're fundraising, as you're pitching, right in the especially early on, this is a new category. So how did you convince people? I'm sure people were skeptical. I'm sure the sharks were as well. How did you convince people that this was, you know, something that worth investing in?
Of course. Well, and I have to be completely honest. My main criticism of myself on this journey always has been I'm not a good fundraiser. So maybe the answer is I have not done a very good job. But I went out to pitch, a 10 to 15 million Series A, and literally took over 250 rejections, and eventually just said, okay, this is not happening, and closed the round. Can't even call it closed the round, just abandoned the round, and instead focused on trying to get the company profitable as quickly as humanly possible. So I honestly don't think I ever really succeeded in convincing the investment community at large. Overall, we have raised about $4.5 million in total from angel investors who I think would agree really were bought in on me. A lot of them in those early days, when they were cutting 10 and 25K checks to a 20-year-old kid with no background, I think they thought, if anyone's going to figure this out, it's going to be this young woman. But they weren't necessarily 100% convinced I was going to figure it out. You know what I mean? So once I graduated to trying to raise real institutional funding, could not succeed in closing that gap. I do think a lot of that has to be with being a female founder and having a female focused product. I tell people a lot of those 250 pitches, you're usually given 15 to 30 minutes to make your case. And when you're pitching to a board of, 5 to 8 men, I get to spend half that time just explaining why women wear heels. So it's like, okay, I'm not even getting to the metrics, So I think a lot of it has to do with kind of the larger fundraising climate. And it did not help that the macro climate was a disaster for the fashion industry at the time. But what I have been able to do is successfully sell women on the product as a customer. And what I've learned is that that's actually, in my opinion, like 300 times more valuable, because now we've been able to build this amazing community of customers that love the product, they advocate for the product, they market for the product, and they buy all of our accessories over and over and over again. And I think the main way I've been able to succeed in that is actually kind of the opposite of what I experienced with fundraising. As I said, I'm a young woman coming in talking about heels to a room full of men. When I'm talking to my customer, I have this unique advantage of I am my customer. Like I didn't create this product in a void. I created it to solve my own pain point and my own problem that I was experiencing every day, and I knew all my friends were experiencing every day. And so whenever I, get on TikTok to make a promotional video, I'm able to speak from this really authentic place of I genuinely love the product I created. It's genuinely a benefit in my own life and a benefit in the lives of all the women that I know. And I think that really rings true. The authenticity rings through, and I'm able to demonstrate the case studies in such a relatable way that it really resonates with the customer and has built the business that way. So where I fail in fundraising, I succeed in actually selling to customers. So we'll take it. That works for me.
Something interesting you said, and I love that you talked about authenticity, because we talk about that a lot, right? Connecting with the consumer, connecting with the people that you're trying to sell to. So they don't really feel like you're selling to them. They feel like you're solving a problem, you're helping them, right? So something I love about your company is that you've basically grown it with zero paid marketing. Like you said, you go on TikTok, you make these videos, you connect with your customer. And you were quoted saying your biggest challenge wasn't just launching a brand, but an entirely new category, right? Because really we hadn't seen this before. So what was the biggest lesson that you've learned about getting people to talk about a concept that they had never really seen before for free? Because like you said, if it's not in the store and I can't physically see it, how did you get them to do that? So I think the marketing behind this using social media is fantastic.
Thank you. Well, and I wish I had a huge strategic insight to share, but whenever I talk about, our marketing success, obviously there's the consistency and the relatability. We come up with creative new concepts for videos literally 24/7. It's a daily activity at this point. But at the root of all of our marketing success, I genuinely think is the fact that we've created a brilliant product and it actually solves a problem that so many women experience daily. Not to say that makes the marketing easy by any means, but it makes it much easier. I'm able to make these videos and just say, hey, are you a woman that has worn sneakers on her walk to work and then changed into heels outside the office? Or are you a woman whose heel's been stuck in a grate? Or you've been barefoot on the Vegas Strip? Or, you've stepped on glass? Like, we all have that thing that we've been through with heels, and we've been able to successfully create a product that solves all those problems at once, and again does so in such a visual way. Really, the big insight I had with TikTok actually came from in-person experiences. So when we were still trying to make retail happen, we were really banging our heads against the wall trying to make it happen in the worst retail climate ever. I was able to host 2 different pop-ups with a retail partner, basically kind of a trunk show model, to test how we would sell this shoe in store. And so we did this kind of A/B test where on day 1, I went in and showed customers demonstrations, walked them through how the product worked. And then on day 2, we just left the shoes on the shelf, kind of the traditional retail model of you just put it on the shelf and people buy it or they don't, and kind of compared the sales data. And what we saw was the days where I was there giving demonstrations, I kid you not, in both locations, this was in Chicago and Iowa, so like very different demographics, 90% of the women that tried on shoes bought them, like on the spot. And actually, I think it was about 20% bought multiple pairs. But that was with me there selling it. Day 2, when it was just on the shelf, nothing happened. Like literally $0. So we would go from tripling the store's sales figure to doing nothing. And so that really showed me, okay, the demonstration piece of this is the most important. And also it's kind of a feather in my cap of I am a very effective salesperson. Like, people really like hearing me talk about this shoe. And so I was trying to figure out, how do we scale the experience of me giving a demonstration to the masses in a way that's actually affordable. Again, always scrappy, could not fundraise. I was like, as much as I would love to physically fly to every city in the country and host demos, we don't have the money for all those plane tickets. Like, that's just not happening. So I need to find the scrappier way to do this. And the first thought was influencers. Let's bring in influencers, have them show off the shoe, because you have to keep in mind, I was not an influencer by any means at this point. I had, 200 followers on TikTok. Like, this was not something that I did. And so, but again, being scrappy, I thought, if we're going to bring in influencers to make content, I want to make sure we're giving them a very clear content direction that we know will be effective. Because if we're going to pay someone $3,000 to make content, we better make our money back, because we, again, have no money. We're broke. So I started testing content formats on TikTok myself as an experiment to just see what was going to work. Like, was it, a day in the life piece of content? Was it a visual demonstration? What would get the job done? Much to my surprise, my test content went viral. I ended up gaining 250,000 followers on TikTok overnight. Like, it was really one of those things where I went to bed with, I think, about 800 and I woke up with 250,000. I was like, what happened here? Like, one of my videos just blew up. And so after that, again, being scrappy, I was like, maybe I don't have to pay anyone. I could just do this every day myself.
Pocket that 3,000.
Yes.
I was like, there it is. I just made $3,000. Yay. And so I started posting on TikTok every single day. And now I have almost 1 million followers. I'm at like 997, which is crazy. And all that's happened in the last 2 years. So anyway, that's kind of a long-winded answer, but that's how we really ended up figuring out how to sell such a new concept was it's not enough to just put it on a shelf and leave it alone. It's not enough to just, have an influencer talk about it. Like, it's really me bringing that firsthand passion and visually showing, hey, this is how this is going to make your life better. And that's what really resonates.
I love that as you keep growing the business, you always hear that you have to do this as an entrepreneur, you have to do this, but it shows that really the authenticity component of this is what works so well. And you don't have to overcomplicate things by involving all these tasks and all of these ideas. It really is down to down to the nitty gritty of it, is that involves you, and people like connecting and seeing what you're doing. And that's clearly is resonating. I wish I saw your reaction when you saw the extra 250,000, by the way.
I was I thought it was a glitch. I was like, what's happening? Like, this is not, I was like, this is not real. What is going on here? Yeah, that was a crazy day. That was a good day.
I can imagine.
What I'm also getting from this, which I think is really interesting, and it speaks to like probably entrepreneurs probably feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have to follow a certain model, or there's certain things that you should be doing because you're launching a business, or you're, launching a brand. But it really sounds like really what you have to do is what works best for you, right? Like maybe what worked for you won't work for somebody else, or vice versa. So it's almost like you have to kind of create that path for yourself, and not, yes, you can look to see what other people have done, but you really have to kind of make your own mark, because only you can tell what's going to work best, right? So you knew creating these videos is what, and showing your customers or potential customers why they need it, right? Like, not just like, here, buy my shoe, but this is why you should buy it, right? Whereas for some other businesses, maybe that's not the model. So I love that you
Absolutely.
figured that out.
And she did that even from the beginning, because
Right.
as you were saying, from when you were in college, you just dove in and you're like, I'm going to start this business. Where some people will analyze and build out
Right.
all of these business plans and then never actually get to launching a company, right? Like, you dove in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and those are all fantastic points. And to your point, I get asked a lot by other entrepreneurs, tell me about your marketing formula, tell me the secret. And I always come back to, every business is different. Like, what works for me is probably not going to work for someone else. I'm a big fan of, you've just got to get in there, throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, see what works. And then I think the biggest thing, and really my superpower, is figure out how to take that insight and scale it in a practical way that works for you. I can't tell you how many other founders, again, that they would have gone into a store, seen, oh, when we're there doing the in-person demo, that works. Okay, that's what we have to scale, but that's going to cost $10 million. So I'm going to go out, sell 40% of the company so that I can staff all these stores all over the place. It's going to take 5 years to roll out, like blah, 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 blah. I am always laser focused on, okay, how can I translate what I know into something I can do right now, within budget and with the resources at my disposal, as fast as possible? Because I've always known, with building a brand, especially around something this disruptive, a lot of the key to success is momentum. Like, you want to be the first player, you want to be the brand everyone thinks of whenever they think about a convertible heel. And that really just comes with speed. And so I've gotten very good at going, okay, demos work. I do not have $10 million to go open a bunch of stores. How do I scale this with tools at my disposal as scrappily as possible, and then bringing that to life? Like, I think that's really the thing that has set me apart, is figuring out how to make really good lemonade out of weird lemons and like a pinch of sugar. You get the pinch of sugar, and then you're like, okay, we know what we have to do. We have none of the money and none of the people to get it done.
Yeah.
So how are we going to squeeze this lemon? is where I thrive.
And I love how quick you are to move with things and to make traction happen for yourself. I mean, it shows that even with your content, you're doing that. So how are you able to, with all these moving pieces, keep the content so relevant as you're growing the business and everything else?
I think one of the biggest insights I've got, at least for me personally, making content, is I do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what founders don't like to hear. Again, whenever I talk to founders, like, oh, can you do like one content day and batch it for 3 weeks and blah, 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 which you totally can. But what I think I have found is, again, the modern consumer is so aware of advertising. You guys are in the same boat. We all grew up in the pre-iOS era where digital ads were running wild.
Yep.
Influencers were pushing every single thing. And the modern consumer has become really privy that when they see hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored, someone's making a lot of money to say that something is good.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like the going back to just being authentic, the
Right.
authenticity with those kinds of activities, I think, is really scaled down. And especially with what I'm doing, I'm bringing a new brand to market they've never heard of. I'm bringing a new product to market that they've never seen before, and triggers all these questions like, is the heel going to spontaneously fly off, or, all these random things. They want to feel like they can trust the product. And inherently, a big part of that is, do they feel like they can trust me? And the best way that I can do that is I show up every single day. I answer the questions that they commented on my video the day before. I bring them along with me on things that I'm doing so they know that this is real time. One of the best examples is, again, if you batch content, then you're posting in the same outfit for 3 weeks. The modern consumer knows, like, this was all pre-filmed, this was all pre-recorded. We're not really getting that genuine look and feel and insight into the life of this person and the life of this brand. My community very much knows that I'm there. I'm there every day. I'm listening to them. We're having that open dialogue and that open conversation. And because of that, they're not only more invested in my journey, but they trust in me. And that's really what earns that relationship, where they trust the brand.
And this
Absolutely.
makes complete sense about timing wise, because we've noticed on the PR side that after COVID, there was such an increase of appetite for authenticity and the way that brands connect with consumers. You have to have that authentic component. And that's where obviously we saw an increase of thought leadership, seeing more of the founder, the face of the brand. That is truly such a good success story now, because people are so tired of being oversold by big brands that you never really know who's behind it. They're just trying to sell you. But people feel like it's such an authentic
They want to be, it's
relationship.
right. It has to be relatable. Like, we
Yeah.
can, if somebody can relate to you,
Yeah.
then they want to follow you. They want to invest in you. And they want to, when I say invest, they want to invest, like, they care about what you're
They want
saying.
to be part of your
Right. They want to be a
journey.
part of your journey. So
And it
it's
makes
that
sense.
connection. So I
Yeah.
I definitely understand why your community wants to
Yeah.
see you. And like to the point you said about hashtag ad or sponsored.
Mhm.
Yeah, how do I know? Because you're saying it's great, but is it great? It's great. You got paid to say that, but is it really? Like, give me your genuine feeling about it. So I'm sure for you, posting all this content and getting that reaction from your audience, from your consumers, your customers, what's been the most for you rewarding reaction or feedback that you've gotten from someone?
Oh my goodness, so much. I mean, I can't even explain how rewarding the dialogue is in the community that I've built around this. Partially because I just love seeing their excitement for the brand, but it's actually become a really viable tool in our growth. Something I've done with my content is I'm very radically transparent. I tell them the ups and downs, but more importantly, at least I think they would say so, I share our product development, which is really uncommon for fashion brands. I, just the other day made a video showing a bunch of samples for our summer line of next year and asked the customers, do you prefer this shoe or this shoe? And I immediately have access to 996,000 people watching that and giving me feedback in real time. And so now I know, okay, shoe A is the hot shoe over shoe B. And that makes me feel so much more confident as a small brand with tight budgets allocating the money to that shoe, because I already know there's going to be a demand for it and a customer that wants it. So it's got incredible business advantages just with the fact that I know I'm making a product that they want every single time. It really de-risks a lot of what we're up to. But then also for me personally, again, it's seeing women comment about how much they genuinely love this product and how much it's changed their lives. A wonderful example is October 4th was our 9th birthday. That weekend, 6 women that are some of our biggest customers, they've all spent, I think, over like $2,000 with the brands, like have huge collections, kind of like what you see behind me. They all traveled to Nashville and hosted a passion retreat for the weekend.
Ooh.
Wow.
And none of them had met before. They all met in the comments of our TikTok videos and like our Facebook group that we have for some of our top customers, organized this whole thing. They invited me to Zoom in, and I did, which was so cute. And while I was on the Zoom, one of the women literally said to me, she goes, we are all complete strangers that have met and become best friends because of a shoe that you created. And I can't even explain how rewarding that was, because I really never thought when I started a shoe company, it's going to become this like entire community of women, and there's going to be friendships and so much more built out of like the brand mission that we're creating. And so that in and of itself was incredibly rewarding.
Well, that also speaks to your brand loyalty. I mean, brand loyalty is not something you can just purchase, right? It's all about built in and credibility and trust. And that's what you've been able to
Wow.
accomplish with your brand. And listen, as a founder, that's a goal to do. And I love that you're putting your time and energy into that, because so many people get hooked on dollars. And does that translate to the balance sheet? And what does that look like? But brand loyalty doesn't convert over.
Absolutely. No, it's the authenticity and making sure they really know that this is a brand I'm trying to build for them. And I think going back to authenticity and trust, you're talking about how in the pandemic you have all these mega corporations like shoving ads at you and not knowing who's behind it. I think in particular, kind of an interesting insight into the female consumer right now. Part of why I think our company and our brand in this community works is we're very proud to be a by women for women business. I'm obviously a female founder creating a female product. I fit test it myself. I wear test it myself. Of my 12 team members, 11 of them are women. Like, we are really focused on building something that actually works in women's daily lives. So something that's huge in the media right now is it's coming out exactly how many products are made for women without women's input, that are designed by men. I mean, there's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Entirely different category. I don't know if you guys saw this story, but I just remember this was ridiculous. It came out that I think earlier this year was the first time tampons were tested with actual blood.
What?
Isn't that insane?
2025, finally, they're doing it.
Now they want to know if
Isn't
it works.
Isn't that crazy? And of course,
I
all
have
the
no
executives
words.
at these health companies are men, which, like, again, that's kind of a niche example.
Yeah.
But you think about, I remember another case study I saw was dresses with zippers in the back, right?
Oh,
That pattern was created 300 years ago during an era where no woman left the house without a man. So there was always a man to zip you up.
Right.
And then we've just never changed it. And so when you really look at the women's product category, regardless of if it's fashion or medical or what have you, our actual lived experiences have been so ignored in our product development for so long. And so I think a big part of why this whole thing is working is again, as I said before, I am the customer. I'm making my own product. And because they're along with me every day on this content journey, they know that and they trust that. And so many other brands are really failing them in that respect. And so I think that's a big part of what set us apart.
Haley, I've loved chatting with you. I'm so sad our time is coming tonight. I feel like we
know.
could talk forever
I know.
about this. Next time we'll bring the wine, California. You'll have to bring it to us.
Love it.
Yes, we're going to continue this, but
This
really
has been
appreciate
fantastic.
this. How can people follow the brand? How can people check out the website?
Absolutely. So you can follow the brand at Pashion Footwear, which is spelled Pashion. Fun fact, it stands for practical fashion. But they can follow at Pashion Footwear on Instagram or TikTok. They can follow me at HALEY_PAVONE on both platforms as well. And then all of our shoes are available at passionfootwear.com.